it always moves me to think that my work grew so, like this mold, my work proliferated so quickly just from my willingness and my capacity to be seen. Nothing changed with me. I always felt these things. I always spoke this way. I have a better language for it now because I'm more familiar with it. And I have certain terms I was trained in that kind of back up my own personal philosophies. But nothing changed on my end with me in terms of what I believed or how I worked. What changed was my capacity, my body's ability to be seen thanks to being propelled from the mold, from this horrible situation where I lost everything. Welcome to the Holistic Life Navigation Podcast, where we explore life through the lens of somatics. I'm Luis Mujica, a somatic educator who teaches people how to find safety in themselves. Your turn to learn begins now. I wanted to just record this episode with just me to play a little bit with just the way things work in life, the things that happen that we can't even fathom how they could be working in our favor, how they end up just rebirthing and renewing and something new emerges from them. And them, when I'm speaking about, are ruptures, when things happen in life that are really painful or abrupt or shocking or even traumatic. And I thought it'd be interesting to tell this story because if this wouldn't have happened, the story I'm about to tell, I would never have had this course or this podcast. And I'll explain why. So it was 2018, and I was living, my wife and my daughter and I were living in this old house, 19th century home in what's called the Black Clove, this very magical place in West Socrates in upstate New York. And attached to the house, it was like a long house. It used to be an inn back in the 1800s. And in the middle of it was this little kind of chamber, this room that I rented out as my office. And so clients would come there, nutritional clients. And as I started emerging and merging with the field of somatic psychology, I would have clients that were specifically working with their trauma. This office was very hidden. This office was very dark, very dingy. It had two small windows that were facing a front porch that was covered with a roof. So there was no direct sunlight. So it was a really kind of dingy, dark place, and I liked that. I had a couple of very low-lit candles and lights. And when people walked in, they would always say, "Whoa, it's really dark in here," but I like that. I feel safe. And so it allowed people to go deeper into their sessions with me because there was just a little bit of a softening, right, between the outside world and us in this little dark womb-like area. I worked there for a while, and I think I started working there in 2016. Yeah, 2015, 2016. So it was about 3 years. And suddenly my daughter and my wife started having a ton of health issues. Their ears were infected all of the time. My wife's eardrum actually ruptured and she couldn't hear out of it for weeks. And we didn't know what was going on because our diets are pretty impeccable and health usually comes pretty easily to them. And one day my wife was cleaning and she just happened to look under the table, and the way the light was shining, the dining room table was just glittering with mold spores. And it happened to be this really strange, hot, humid summer. And the humidity was just kind of amplifying mold spores in these very old houses. Our house was also next to the creek, and there was a waterfall. So there'd be, vapors of water just spraying across the area all the time. And as we would come to learn, we got a mold kit. We tested the house. The house was just completely infested with black mold and white mold and blue and yellow and everything you could imagine, from the ceiling to down to the floor, the walls, our furniture, everything. We had to leave immediately because it was such a health hazard. And this included my office space. And including, or I should say, additionally, all of our belongings were so permeated by these mold spores that they weren't really able to be taken to a new home because it would just essentially infect, if you will, that new home. So there were only a very small handful of things that were able to salvage clothing because it's very easy to wash and put in a dryer and kill the mold spores. We were able to use a vinegar rinse on like some of my records and a couple pieces of furniture that were not too old. Most of the furniture we have is antique. So the grain of the wood had been exposed because any kind of polish or laminate had worn off over the decades. And so the mold was just living so deeply in there that they weren't able to be saved. I was very lucky at this time because I was practicing the work of Byron Katie hardcore. It was all I was thinking about, it was all I was doing. So I was playing with kind of my episode that just came out 2 weeks ago about how everything's for you, not against you. Um, I was really living that, in a curious way, like, well, how is this to my benefit? And not to bypass the pain or the struggle something caused, but just a true question. Well, how is this also okay? Not horrible, but how is it okay? Not desired or what I'd want, but okay. And so I remember just being very centered and witnessing the loss of this life that I had come to rely on, this office space, this home that was very affordable for us, just the way our lives lived and it kind of revolved around this place and this space. All of our belongings, like some objects that felt very sacred to us, we've had for a long time. To see those things have to be thrown out and to lose them, I really got to practice this non attachment. And what first happened, which was very magical, an old client of mine who had retired said that the space he used to work out of, he thinks was open in town. So I called the landlord. They said, yes, it is open. It's going to be $900 a month. My office at the time was $400 a month. And I was in so much debt already because I had funded an album that would turn out later to be financially unsuccessful because COVID hit right as I was releasing it and about to go on tour. So I wasn't able to make the money back from it. But I used a credit card to fund this album, probably like $15,000, $20,000, which I've never spent that much money on a piece of work. I didn't have that kind of money. So I was already in debt. And then we had to find a new home to rent. I had to rent this office space and I had to refurnish our lives. We had nothing left. So very quickly, within 6 weeks, we found a new home. I found my office and I found myself having to pay 4 months of different rent up front and get office supplies and get furniture. And before you knew it, I was in tens of thousands of dollars of debt. And that would just grow over that first year. And I went into well over 6 figures of debt. Now, in addition to this, I hadn't been paying my taxes. So it was 5 years into having my own practice. I was really bad at managing my taxes. I didn't know anything about it, to be honest. I didn't have my own business ever in my life. So it was a new concept of, oh, I have to actually save this as I make it so I can pay it off. And I wasn't even close to that. So in addition to being in 6 figures of life debt, I then find myself in enormous amounts of tax debt. I mean, think of not paying taxes for 5 years. It's tens of thousands of dollars. So I'm saying all this, you can understand I was under this mountain of debt suddenly that I was unaware was going to happen. I didn't have the house I was used to. I didn't have the office I was used to. What I did have was something new happening, which was being seen. When I worked out of this office in West Saugerties, it was so dark and dingy, which I loved. That's why I loved it, because I didn't have to be seen. It felt very safe being in the shadows in this place. I didn't have Instagram. I didn't take any Zoom clients or any kind of online clients. I just worked by phone or in person. So there was the safety of not having to be in the world. I felt very held. I loved that people came out of their way to find me in the mountains, and it just felt good. It felt within my capacity. Suddenly, this mold, like the spores themselves, propelled me out into a different ecosystem. And this new ecosystem was really bright. My new office was in the middle of town. It was surrounded by, cars and people walking. It was the second floor, but it was very exposed. There were windows across the entire length of the walls. It was so bright, so beautiful. But I remember really jarring. I remember my clients coming in saying, whoa, this is a different atmosphere. I don't know if I like this. And I was like, I don't know if I do either. And so they would come in after a couple months. I started getting used to it. I started making the area more beautiful, brought all my plants, just kind of started enjoying the light. And I didn't realize it, but over those months, I was building capacity to be seen, first by my clients, and then I started playing with online events. I started playing with Instagram. I started making little videos on my phone. I got a phone just so I can make videos on Instagram. And that was because I liked being seen suddenly. The office I had in West Socrates, it was I had a room where I saw clients, and I had my office where my desk was, and my computer was, and my headset rather, for when I had phone clients. And that office was just kind of put together very quickly with particle board and 2x4s. And so it looked, trashy to say the least, even though I loved it. It wasn't a good look for anyone online working with me. This really dark space with one light in the background casting its glow on 2x4 and particle board. So I didn't want to be seen. And I liked that. So I was attracted to a place that didn't beckon being seen. And now I was suddenly in this place that was so beautiful. I looked better in it because of the lighting. The space looked more professional. It just looked like a place I wanted to share more from. So that would take me to Instagram and to building capacity to be seen by people. And it always moves me to think that my work grew so like this mold. My work proliferated so quickly just from my willingness and my capacity to be seen. Nothing changed with me. I always felt these things. I always spoke this way. I have a better language for it now because I'm more familiar with it. And I have certain terms I was trained in that kind of back up my own personal philosophies. But nothing changed on my end with me in terms of what I believed or how I worked. What changed was my capacity, my body's ability to be seen, thanks to being propelled from the mold, from this horrible situation where I lost everything, got tons of debt. I was suddenly able to be seen. And then this reciprocity started coming back to me. Tens of thousands of people following me on Instagram, and then my newsletter. And then suddenly I'm doing my first course ever in, what was that, 2020, February 2020, right before COVID. And I remember 19 people signed up for that course. And I remember thinking, whoa, am I allowed to teach 19 people somatic psychology? Am I allowed to teach 19 people how to feel their bodies, how to eat to settle their nervous systems, how to incorporate certain practices to manage anxiety and stress and self-relate so that inner state transforms because it's being witnessed by the self? I didn't think I had permission for that. I felt very squeamish. So I was hoping like 5 people signed up. When 19 people signed up, I was scared. I did that first course. It was 4 weeks long, 1 meeting a week, and it was a webinar format. So I couldn't even see who was on the other end, which again, worked for me because I couldn't really handle seeing other people's faces and how they were reacting or not reacting. I got such incredible feedback after that course that I thought, well, I'm going to do more of these. I mean, how nice to sit back, to bring what I know, to teach someone how to do this work themselves, and then to be done. Whereas in private practice, for me, the role that would come in was I was really the one doing it. Not, I don't want to say for them, but it wasn't like, here it is, go have fun. It was like, here I am, let's be safe together, go back to that world that's really scary, come back to me later. And I didn't know I was setting it up that way. It wasn't my intention. I've just learned in this lifetime, for me, being a teacher makes the role so much more clear than being a therapist. If I'm a therapist, if I'm a coach, if I'm a nutritionist, people see me as this individual force in their life that has authority over these situations, and they wait all week to get in and get healed. I didn't like that model. The teaching model really worked for me after that first class. I thought, this is great. A group of people learning what they innately know how to do in their bodies. They just haven't had the terms or the way or the permission maybe. And then they're off into the world. Felt like a huge trauma bond I was breaking in my own body, in a good way, of not having to be the fixer anymore, but instead, hey, my friends, look what I've learned. Here it is. I'm going to teach you. Have fun. So again, this mold propelled me into the space of being seen more. Being seen more propelled me onto an online space. Then that propelled me into, well, let's try to design a course based on what I've been doing in secret, really, for many years. That course would start at $300 a person and would be 4 weeks long with one session a week. 3 years later, to this day, after a ton of, I just said to this day, no, I would say 3 years and where are we? 3 years and 2 months later to this day, I've learned so much about myself, about the world, about other cultures, and about this course and how so many people learn so differently. That this course went from one 90-minute session a week for 4 weeks to 27 live sessions over the course of 6 weeks with audio exercises, with a 75-page manual, a booklet that you get to take and print and do whatever you want with afterwards, with these exercises in them to teach you how to do this work on your own. Downloads, so you can have the replays, you can watch everything for the rest of your life. A circle space where the whole 6 weeks you have tech support from my team and you have actual support on the content from my team. This course has become a little world you get to dive into for 6 weeks, learn so much, practice so much, be seen, build your capacity to be seen. And then you get to leave with all these resources. And it's $600. I've doubled it over the course of 3 years. I'm saying this because this episode is one part case study of, again, another example of how things happen for you. Something that seems absolutely awful, that could have destroyed my life, right? And it could have. I felt a part of me that was feeling that. But I allowed it to propel me. I allowed my body to just be like a seed carried by the wind, like a spore, right? Carried by wind and water, and just thrown somewhere else to proliferate. And these bodies, for me, these human bodies are like seeds. They're seeds that are cast all across different continents and land masses and water masses in ways that sometimes are painful, in ways that sometimes are beautiful and exciting, ways that are filled with consent and desire, and ways that are against consent. They just happen against you. You're thrust across the border somewhere because you will be killed if you stay where you live. All these strange ways that nature and human pain and injustice propels these seeds to proliferate in new places. And this was one little example in my life of where my body, this seed of nature, was propelled from one place to another. Instead of shutting down into a freeze response and resisting that propellant, which I did initially. I felt the resistance. Luckily, I had somatic practices in this work of Byron Katie, and I let it move me. And it moved me into a whole new ecosystem I could have never fathomed I'd be doing or even be enjoying or having any success with. So this episode is one part case study, just to give you an example of what I'm talking about when we allow things to happen for us and we don't take it personally and we don't make it like there's something wrong with us. I didn't feel an ounce of shame from being in this amount of debt. I'm still paying it off, by the way. I didn't have any shame that the house was filled with mold. None of that had to do with me. It was just what was needed for me to survive. And so I'm at this point now where I'm able to say, thank you, mold. Thank you, rupture. Thank you, debt. Thank you for everything I lost. So I could gain this amazing new part of my career, this amazing new way to speak and work with people. I feel so grateful for this new work. I feel so grateful that the rupture happened and it propelled me to this place. I could have never seen that coming. So I feel lucky for the humility that allowed me to be carried in the wind and see where it was taking me. And so I ask you, today is the first day. Registration is open for this 6-week course. The next one begins on May 8th. It's open for 2 weeks. Go to my website, holisticlifenavigation.com. Check out the course. See how this amazing thing was born from these events and see how it resonates in your body. See if it speaks to you. See if it feels like it's yours to take and it's your time to take it. All the information is on the website. I offer a payment plan, $150 a month for 4 months. And when the course is over, you will be invited into our membership space, which is amazing. And you'll learn more about that on the website if you go there. So thank you all for listening. I'm so excited for this next iteration of the course. And I'm happy to give you another example of how when something happens in your life, you have the ability to respond to it. I could never have stopped the mold. I couldn't have controlled that I didn't have any money at that time this happened. I couldn't have had anything to do with the illnesses that this brought up in my body or my wife or my daughter's body. This was nature. This is what was happening. My ability to respond to it was the only thing I had any agency around. And it's so great if we can feel into where is our agency. I love this quote from Maya Angelou. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. And what I think that means is use my agency based on how it's able to be used in each situation. If I can run out of the door of a burning building, use my agency. If I can't get out of the door, change my attitude, because that's all we have, situation to situation. Ooh. That's the end of today's episode. Now let's take a moment to notice where we feel the episode in our bodies. Close your eyes. Take a breath. And let whatever wants to come up, come up. And remember, those sensations hold the wisdom that we're looking for. If you want to go deeper, visit holisticlifenavigation.com. Trauma doesn't heal just by talking about it. Trauma must be felt in the body. And that's because trauma isn't about the event. If it were, we'd feel fine when the events were over. Trauma is how the body responds to the events. It's how the events still reverberate in our bones, how they echo through our nervous systems. And from that echo comes a lifestyle. Our behaviors, our cravings, our addictions, even our relationship decisions can come from a desperation for finding safety, because the biology of trauma is one of living in remembered and expected threat. My course will help you get in touch with these sensations and teach you how to build the capacity to actually withstand them as they arise to meet you. We'll be doing this through whole food nutrition, somatic practices, and self-inquiry. And eventually you'll learn how to create a relationship to the trauma inside of you, and through that relationship, it transforms. My course is 6 weeks long, and it is filled with everything I have learned in the past 17 years that helped me release stress and trauma from my body and my life.
Really enjoyed the way that Louise had prompts and things throughout the class that we could even do and kind of just start our own journey of self-healing and listening to our bodies and listening to ourselves.
Learning how to connect with the sensations in different parts of my body. Learning when I feel safe and when I don't, and which parts of my body feel safe and which don't, has been amazing for my connection with the whole of myself.
We're literally just created this new foundation for me to know how I feel when I keep my blood sugar balanced, when I keep this level plane across all of my days.
One of the things that was really profound came in week 2 with the shift in diet. Not only in terms of noticing a real shift in my energy levels, but also in my gut health.
I love the simplicity of that. And I love that when I eat my beans, I know I'm doing something really, really good for my body, my stress, my adrenaline.
You'll have access to 3 90-minute sessions each week with me and my team, over a dozen audio exercises, and PDFs, all of which are downloadable for you to have for life. You leave this course and everything is yours. One of my favorite things about the course is our online circle space. It's a private forum where you can go, express, share, ask questions, and connect to people in the course in real time through the entire 6 weeks.
You have that moment where you just understand yourself. You just understand all these things that you just could not make sense of. And in a large part, what your community, what society is trying to tell you, and you know it's wrong, but you just don't have the words to communicate why. And it was just I get it now. I understand that this is ancestral, this is generational, this is environmental, this is my family, but not in a way of blame, but awareness and having like the compassion and the courage to change it.
I have an amazing team that supports me and you through these 6 weeks. Marika is the operations manager, and she's here to support you directly, day to day. And Camille is the community manager. She's here to answer your questions based on any of the content or really anything that comes up throughout the course. You have real human interaction and support throughout the entire 6 weeks.
Luis, Marika, and Camille hold such impeccable space. Even just to experience space being held in a way of such integrity in a group has been really transformational for me. So I 100% recommend the course. It is truly a gift.
Trauma's natural. It's a part of life. It moves through us, and it's actually part of our life force. This work and these practices will teach you how to transform this into something of vitality. So if this excites you, if it interests you, even if it scares you a little bit, I would love for you to join this course so you can explore these parts of yourself and learn how to release stress and trauma through listening to your body.
Learning how to access those parts of my body after a lifetime of trying to escape feeling, just like that as a tool was really incredible.
I think a lot of people would echo my experience of like, wow, you've finally put into words or you've given new terms or definitions to experiences that I've had or sensations that I've had. Things that I've been trying to sort of explain to myself or others, or just haven't even been able to start. All of a sudden there's this sort of like new vocabulary, like a whole new language that you start to be able to speak to describe your experience.
These practices are very simple and they're described in really good layman's language. And yet they seem to have a really profound effect.
I had like all of this head knowledge, but I stepped into the class and day one had a profound somatic experience. It was like everything came online.
He was so careful to not overload us with so much logical thinking and so much theory. There was such a beautiful mix between the theory, the logical parts, and also the experiential.
It really helped me learn how to slow down and remember that I have a body.
I think one of the most profound changes has been appreciating that many of my reactions, maybe all of my reactions, I guess, are ways that my body is kindly trying to take care of me.
I knew intellectually that I live in a mental state of foreboding. What I didn't realize until I took the course was that I'm also in a physical state of constant charge. So by being able to track the charge and find the safety in that room, I was able to bring myself back to the moment, and it has been life-changing.
This isn't about like fixing something that's broken in me. This is about, and I feel really emotional when I say this, it's about relating to parts of me that are like real.
This is about creating a relationship with your capacity. So when life stimulations come my way, I have more energy to work with it, or I have the awareness to go, oh, hey, I don't have capacity for this right now.
And I always thought trauma in me was a big box in my head, but turns out that it's little boxes in my cells and tissues, and it opens up in different form of disease, distress, aches in my body, because it's those little boxes every corner of my body. And it's just so good to understand things in this way. It just helps me to befriend my body in a way where I can integrate the trauma rather than trying to fight it all the time.
If we hadn't worked with Luis, we would probably be on the verge of breaking up, or, you know, we wouldn't be living together anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, this video wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
With my restless leg, let me try it. So I was trying to find a spot on my body that felt calm and safe. And I put my tongue on the roof of my mouth, and then I kind of just like held my nose, and I just stayed with that sensation, those two places. And then my restless leg went away.
I ended up taking Luis and the program on a flight with me. I hadn't been on an airplane by myself since I was 15 years old prior to horrific trauma. And it was amazing. I had no anxiety, no panic attacks.
This course has really, really helped me understand why I'm so exhausted and give me some tools to better manage the negative reactions I've been having from trauma, and to reformat my life a little bit, especially diet-wise.
Having my system less adrenalized through the diet, I feel better able to really be present and settled in my system.
I'm not afraid of my body anymore. I think I'm better able to sit with my experiences and be curious.
You really dive into your own body, which is just such a beautiful connection to make.
There's a common thread in all of us humans, and the sense of community that brought us together, even if it was through the thread of trauma. You don't feel so alone, or it's only me that is having these problems. And I think you can get to deeper parts of you that way by being supported in that community.
Luis has a great balance between masculine and feminine, both those energies, and the dichotomy between the two of them and the polarization is really beautiful to see in someone. And it really allows me to be my full self by seeing that in him.
I think my favorite thing about the course was Luis. I mean, he's just so loving and accepting of everybody. I feel like I would have cried just talking about it.
Luis's ability to kind of lead students through the work in a safe space, earn trust, and oftentimes kind of reach a resolution on the spot. It's pretty incredible.